Hi, welcome to Beating the Press with myself, Ty, and my co-host Christian. This week's episode will be around Euro '96. It's obviously memorable to both of us because it was the first. Since then anyway, it was the England hosted the tournament, and it was an interesting one for both of us, I think, because I mean, obviously '94 was the first one we really remember, but '96 it just felt the whole country got involved, similar to the 2018 World Cup at Russia, even though it wasn't quite the same. It had similarities for people that have lived through both tournaments. I don't know how you remember it, Chris, especially the initial part. Considering we were sort of into football at that point, and Terry Venables were obviously in charge, and there was that real uplifting feeling around England. Obviously the song as well, which we'll talk about later.
Mm-hmm.
But just the whole football's coming home, and everyone was banging on about '66 and it being 30 years later, and it was just almost like, oh, it's destiny. And I remember going through newspapers, it was always like, oh, there's this home and this is going to happen, and it just ultimately never sort of came to fruition. But living in that moment, it really felt like you were part of something, and England were going to do something, and they were going to actually,
Yeah,
lift a major tournament since '66.
I was a little bit devastated that we actually got it because the whole point of the World Cup is so that you can experience different cultures and what have you. And I just thought that this World Cup was going to be the same as like a normal Premier League season, where you were seeing the likes of your Allen Roads, you're going to be seeing St James's Parks, and it wasn't going to be something that I was going to enjoy. However,
Yeah, I know what you mean. With it being, it's whenever the major tournament comes, there's that bit of not knowing what the other country's about. So, I mean, for example, obviously the recent one being Russia.
hmm,
You find out about these different cities. When it was in South Africa, you'd find, but with it being in England, you knew everything about Elland Road, Old Trafford, Anfield. Everything was normal, and there was nothing strange. There was nothing unknown to us, so we're comfortable within there. So that sort of familiarity probably just took a little bit away from what the tournament feel like for us. When you're looking forward to it, and that. But I mean, if you put that to one side, I mean, the actual tournament and just the whole, it was a massive feel good factor within the country, and you've not felt that since up until sort of 2018. I felt, but even I mean, I know people trying to compare them both, but I really felt Euro '96 was the tournament. I mean, even though they didn't win, I felt they won. I felt they won. I felt the country was united. Um, I mean, after the whole sort of Graham Taylor not getting through to '94, there was a lot of pressure. Some people were saying of England are in the tournament just because of the host nation, and they're not, they've not earned the right to get there. But then getting that far, and I just think it was huge for the country. If you put the football to the side, and it has got similarities to that point, I'd say, to 2018. But 2018 was different in that I think Gareth Southgate's been brilliant in making a point of saying this is our country, this is our players, We're a very diverse team now. We're a diverse country, and that's reflected in the team that we've got now. And I think that's how we united it this time round. But again, Euro '96 was all about that. You'd have the street parties, you'd have everything, but you wouldn't have as much people going to pubs and throwing the beers up, as they did in 2018. I think Euro '96 were a bit more that feel good factor over there, but less of the sort of beer spilling and
yeah, absolutely. I don't think 2018 compares to '96. Maybe it's just because you're stuck in the past. But
yeah,
Euro '96 was something special. I think it all started with the song. Like the song
yeah.
just epitomised everything about it. And I was even listening to the song earlier, and if you go through the lyrics, it's not even a great song. It's not even on the level of World in Motion. Like I
No,
don't
it's
think it's
absolute wank.
it's not on the level of World in Motion. But as a song which you can relate to, which you can sing in the stands, it's just so catchy that it just captured the whole nation. And
Do
like,
you made a good point there, and I was talking about, like, obviously, I mean, it's a song because it's a great song because it's catchy,
mhm.
and people can sing it in the stands. I had a look, and one of the sort of interesting facts from Euro '96, it got to number 16 in the German charts, that song.
Wow,
And I'm like, German fans are actually buying it. It's not like
yeah.
iTunes now where you just click a thing. It was, yeah, I think you have to go '96, I've got to go out and buy the actual single. But yeah, it was just brilliant, and the whole thing, it just sort of the song was uplifting, everything was good, and I remember, I know since then, obviously we've sort of lived through all the tournaments since.
Yeah.
There's been some really shit songs for England, when they've released them, but that just sort of captured the emotion and the general feeling of the country, and even since then, I mean, that's why it got re-released in 2018, didn't it? And everyone just relates to.
I remember reading a piece before where Jurgen Klinsmann said we got back to Germany, and we were on the podium celebrating with the trophy and what have you, and the crowd just started singing 3 lines on the shirt.
It's coming home, it's coming, football's coming home, it's coming home, it's coming home, it's coming, football's coming.
That's just typical, just rubs it in. But yeah, there was nothing like it, and there hasn't been nothing before that, and there hasn't been anything since that, and I don't think there'll ever be anything like that, because every tournament that we go to now, that song is played out, and it's just so iconic. And like you say, they just keep on rebranding it, but you just go back to that original.
Yeah, I mean, I agree with you. There won't be anything like that again, because I think the whole social media has changed the world, and that tournament was just before. It was about, it was just before the sort of proper internet digital age sort of took off. Now, if you held anything, everyone knows everything about everything now. Just by a click of a button, and the whole. I think the biggest thing about '96 was how it captured the nation's sort of. That I'll keep going about that good feel-good factor without the sort of social media power and presence. You know what I mean? To get stuff trending and get on. It was actual physical sort of connecting with other people and just making it. I mean, you look back, it was a good time in people's lives. We both remember the tournament, but I just did a bit of research and just sort of, went through the teams. The players now are obviously famous to us, and some of them turned out legends and been great players of that generation. But something that really sort of stuck out at me was there was 6 debutant countries in that tournament. And yeah, I mean, teams now that you wouldn't, you'd think they're like a standard team, like they've been
you wouldn't associate as debutants.
Yeah, I mean, it was the first time you've got teams that were like, I mean, you've got the Baltic states obviously split up. Well, yeah, so Russia were the first time they sort of entered as Russia and not as the USSR. There was Bulgaria were the first time they were making the debut, but obviously they did quite good World Cup '94, didn't they, when they knocked out Germany? So it was good things expected of them. I think they ended up going out in the group stages anyway. And then you've got Czech Republic. Again, wow. Czech they split from Czechoslovakia, and then you've got Croatia, which split from the old Yugoslavia. And they're 2 teams now. When you look at it, they're one of your better teams in Europe. You go Czech Republic, Croatia. Generally one of the sort of stronger teams, and you always find them in the Euros. So I think, and then you've got Turkey and Switzerland, with the other 2 making their debuts. But it's just good to give people that maybe want about them just to understand how these sort of well-known teams now, how they sort of came about and what it was like back then, and how it looked like back then. Because obviously USSR, people would only sort of associate Russia with USSR now, but not the fact that USSR was this all-encompassing nation which covered all of Estonia and the rest of it, and the Baltic states around there.
It kind of makes you wonder how they didn't have such an amazing team before they all disbanded.
I mean, USSR did. I mean, going back a bit further, they obviously had Lev Yashin, which we've never seen him play, but just talking about, I mean, he's regarded as the greatest keeper of all time. But then Yugoslavia always had a strong team.
Yeah, Yugoslavia.
They were just one of for technical and tactical ability. And you hear this when you get interviews from all the players that have played in that generation. They said Yugoslavians were just brilliant. Technically, there was no one close. Better than the Brazilians, South American, your Italian, Spanish. But it was just the sort of discipline side of it, which obviously is hugely important. But you just talk about for technique. I mean, you've got players. I mean, you've got countries now, like you mentioned Croatia. You've got Serbia, Montenegro. These sort of things, they're all part of the old Yugoslavia, but they're all unbelievably talented. You look at those players; they've still got some technically really good players.
Yeah.
Croatia, you could go through Modric, Rakitic. Serbia. Players like Ivanovic, I mean, Pjanic is part of Bosnia. You've got Bosnia as well, which is part of the group. So a lot of those players, just imagine if they were one whole team. one, you know, like when I say a whole team, you know what I mean, like
Yeah.
we're part of the same nation. But then football, there's more important things in football, and that's probably why they split in the first place. So just going on to the actual group stages, there were 4 groups of 4, and it was just top 2 went through. Not like 94 where best third place team. So it was just 16. Now obviously there's 32 and more. I think this tournament, latest one before it got cancelled in 2020. This summer for next summer. That was going to have a lot more. But yeah, so that tournament in 96 had 16. You had 4 strong groups. And you had teams that went out on goal difference, namely Scotland. And Italy. So Italy's group was quite tough. They had Italy, Russia, Czech Republic, and Germany. Talking about Italy, I mean, obviously close affinity to me. So obviously lost the final on penalties, and then really looking forward to 96. I mean, obviously with it being in England, I just felt Italy, you know, you've got your team. And I've always wanted England to do well, but I've always said if it was an Italy versus England game, I'd be leaning towards Italy for a win. And obviously that I think in 2012 when they played them, when Balotelli scored, and then the other one when the Pirlo dinked. So I've always, you obviously know me a while as well, and you know it's always that sort of banter between mates, you know, English fans. I've always wanted England to do well. So this one was always England to do well, but I was asked the question, I said, if it was Italy v England final, I'd be an Italian fan. So anyway, just coming back to this group, we've got so Italy, they had a tough group. I mean, it pretty much was the group of death. I mean, there's always a group of death in every tournament. It's just but it was Italy, Germany, Czech Republic, and Russia. First game Italy had was against Russia, and they won 2-1. And then the second game they played Czech Republic. Now this Czech Republic team was team with Nedved, Poborský, Šmíča, Berger. So basically the start of that really strong Czech team. So they lost to Czech Republic, and then the final game they've got Germany. Now they need to beat Germany to get through, and it's 0-0, and they should have won. They missed a penalty. Zola missed a penalty. Such a soft penalty. It was down to Kozlev. He's down, and he just picked it up, and they've created chances Italy, and the Germans have just done the German job and kept a clean sheet and got the draw, gone home. Knocked Italy out, not one of the favourites out, because you imagine if Italy went through and they'd have been there, you know, towards the latter end of the tournament. I mean, the strength of that group was just shown. I mean, the top 2 were the finalists in the end. You know, Germany against Czech Republic were the finalists, and it just showed. I mean, Italy were, you could say, unlucky, but you know, it's just. I mean, they've had a few tournaments since where they've ended up like that. But yeah, so that was just the World Cup finalists from last time around getting knocked out. So we'll just move on to the Spain group now. And that was, again, I mean, if you look at them, I mean, they're all kind of tough because there were 16 strong teams. But yeah, let's just, if we move on to the Spain group, I think that was Group B. So again, that was another tough group. You've got Spain, France, Bulgaria obviously doing really well from 94, and then Romania, who again did pretty well at 94, but ended up on 0 points. So the top 2, expectedly, France and Spain, and Bulgaria finishing 3rd. Bulgaria had Stoichkov and Lechkov. They still had most of the 94 team, strong team, but France and Spain got through.
Just trying to think, the manager back then, it would have been Xhaka, was it?
Yeah, Aimé Jacquet, yeah, you're right. I think Zidane was just starting then as well. They had Jokic. But France got quite far. France got to the semi-finals, and they lost to Czech Republic on penalties.
Yeah.
In that one, yeah. And then if you look at Spain as well, Spain were obviously Spain got beat by England in the knockout stage of the next round. So yeah.
With France, I remember Laurent Blanc. He stood out in the tournament. I think he scored. Did he score 2 or 3 goals?
I know he was the team of the tournament. I can't remember if he scored many goals, but him and Desai at the back were the best centre half partnership in the tournament, and they both team of the tournament as well.
Absolutely. You got the impression that well, it's not even an impression, it's actually a fact. That team wasn't quite ready for that tournament, but it was then going to go on to do great things in the coming tournaments. But
yeah, absolutely. And then what was the last group? Who was, I think, who was involved in that?
So you got Portugal, Croatia, Denmark and Turkey.
Yeah, so that's the Croatians obviously getting through with Portugal. They were the debutants. Denmark were the current holders. They won it in '92. I remember the '92. I never, I didn't watch it. And you get told, and you sort of, do a bit of history, you do a bit of research.
Yeah.
You go back in time, and they didn't qualify for the '92 tournament, did they? Because
No.
I can't remember which team got kicked out, and then they were all on the beach, and they said, by the way, there's a spot open up. Can you play? No preparation, fuck all. Get on the plane, get to the tournament, and they end up winning it.
So obviously this is the Portugal prior to Cristiano Ronaldo. So this is
the Luis Figo, Rui Costa,
João Pinto,
João Pinto as well. Yeah, Fernando Couto, I believe, was there as well. So still a strong team. And obviously Croatia had Davor Suker, Zvonimir Boban. Do you remember him? Boban from Milan?
I do remember Boban, but the name that stands out, what you've just mentioned there, is Davor Suker, that guy. Yeah. Unbelievable finish, unbelievable technique. Probably the most one-sided footballer that you'll ever see, but absolutely
he would never, ever
ridiculous.
Have made it as a professional footballer if it was just for his right foot.
Yeah.
Zero chance. But it was the first time everyone had seen him play. The Suker, I mean, you talk about goals at the top. The two that stick out for me are the Suker lob when he was coming against Denmark, when he's running down, it was like down the left channel, and it was just such a weird angle to chip, because you wouldn't do it. You do that normally as a right foot driving in and then dinking it over. But he's gone his left foot, and it was Peter Schmeichel at the time, who everyone in the Premier League and obviously us watching knew about him as one of the best in the world, and he made him look like an absolute dick.
He did. Yeah.
And then the other goal that sort of stuck out was the Poborski lob. I think that was against Portugal, wasn't it?
Yeah, it was against Portugal in semi. Yeah. Was it the semi or the quarter? It was one of the knockout
games. He just sort of scooped it. They were both very similar finishes. But yeah, they're the two that sort of stuck out, but very sort of similar scoops. Yeah, so we've purposefully left the England group for the last one because it's the one we've got most to talk about. So obviously the whole hype, England at home. People don't remember the first game. They may remember, but it seems to have been lost in sort of time. It was such a shit game. They went 1-0 up because Shearer scored when he got put through. I think Ince just slid a little ball through to him on the inside right channel, and he just rifled it home, sort of into the roof of the net. And they went 1 up, and it was like, right, good kick on, let's make it a real good start. And then Switzerland equalised in the second half of the penalty. Turkelmaz it was, yeah, cool.
Yeah, Turkelmaz, yeah.
And it was 1-1. It finished 1-1 as well.
It was a crap game. Let's not beat around the bush. It was a crap game, but
it's one of those where you always, apart from it being a pretty shit game, we could both agree on that and the way the result finished. The start of the tournament, everyone's up and spirits are high, and then you get such a flat result and a flat performance, it just deflates everyone. Then you start thinking, are we going to fucking qualify? Because I remember it were like next game's against arch enemy Scotland.
We needed to win that
derby, and then you're finishing off against probably the toughest team.
One of the favourites.
Well, yeah, they are the toughest team in the group, and the favourites alongside England. You'd think we go through, and you're just thinking they've just fucked this up. The Switzerland game, everyone was on about that's the nailed on 3-pointer. We need 3 points to sort of get us off to a good start, relax, and then we can go away from there and kick off.
Yeah, you're right. That was the game that we had to win. Yeah. And I just remember it being so flat. We just never really got going, and the team were already under a load of pressure. Like, because if you remember, like before the tournament, they had all the issues where they went to the Far East. They had Gazza's birthday over there, and the dentist thing as well, the dentist chair and what have you. And the papers, although they have the usual ramping the team up and trying to big them up a little bit, there was a lot of pressure on the team because they did have a lot of negativity towards them. And then you think what is effectively the game that you've got to win in the group. Because like you say, you've got a derby, then you've got pretty much Ajax that you're playing against, and not the Ajax of, like, let's say 3-4 years ago. You're talking about the Ajax of the past and maybe of last season. And so it was a game that they had to win, and obviously they didn't. And so moving on to the Scotland game, which was the
famous Scotland game. I think pretty much the last 4 games. It's funny. You go through England Euro '96 and you ask people that went through it, they'll remember the 4 games after the first game.
Absolutely.
You can remember the Scotland game, the Holland game, the Spain. So you remember them? The Scotland game. I think again, if people remember right, they didn't start well. They didn't play great from the start, and it was interesting tactically as well. So England started the tournament playing 4-4-2 against Scotland at half time. Terry Venables changed it. He got Jamie Redknapp on, and they changed it to a 3-5-2. They got obviously the Gazza goal. Everyone's banging on about. It was brilliant. He scored that, and then did McAllister miss a penalty before or after the goal?
Yeah, so it was 1-0 to England, and then they got the penalty. Uri Geller managed to mess around with the ball on the penalty spot. Gary McAllister took his penalty, and Seaman somehow managed to get it off his shoulder. He was saying that, like when he's doing his penalties, he generally likes to dive with one arm up, one arm below, so he's got more of an odds of doing it. But he said the penalty was hit so hard that he had no time to react. When he saved that, they were piling on a lot of pressure, so I was just thinking they're going to go on to win this game. When he saved it, I was absolutely buzzing, and so was my uncle and the people that were in the house. But all I could think was they've got a corner as well after this, and everybody was so hyped. But within a minute later,
do you know it's amazing? Like we're looking back. What now is it? Fucking 25 years. It's scary, isn't it? 26 years. But we're thinking how we're still sort of thinking now. So just to sort of see that when you're sort of in football and ingrained in football and think about it, that sort of thing. I'm a manager. I'd still think about, we've saved the penalty, but it's gone for the corner.
Yeah.
Well, do you know what I mean? So you're sort of still thinking that part of the game is still vitally important. That for us to sort of recognise that all those years ago, and it's sort of, it just sort of shows, we not ahead of your time, but you're still thinking. I don't know if 14, 15-year-olds sort of think that, or they're just fist pumping it and saying, great, we've saved a penalty.
That's what I mean.
Then what about a second goal? The second goal sort of late on, didn't they, just to sort of calm the nerves?
Yeah. So what I remember from that goal was because Scotland were pushing on, and then it was pretty much a counter attack. And I think it was Darren Anderton, with quite a sumptuous ball through to Gazza. And I just remember, was it Colin Hendry? Yeah, Colin Hendry just coming, and I thought Colin Hendry's going to wipe him here. He's got to take him here. And then just out of nowhere, just dinks it over him. Finish, bottom corner. I don't think any other player could have finished that the way that he finished it. It was just world class.
So this was obviously the Scotland game. Loads of pressure after the Switzerland game, needing a result, and obviously the Scots wouldn't have liked anything more to knock England out of the own tournament.
Absolutely. That ball from Gary Neville.
G-Nev getting it in, and Shearer obviously at the back post getting his big noggin on it. It was weird though, wasn't it? Because he'd not scored for 21 months, and then he ended up being top tournament scorer. And then he scored against Switzerland, and he's away. But then that was a right save as well from Andy Gorham. It kept Scotland in the game. You talk about big moments and stuff. If that was true, then it's just finished.
And that is a save.
That is some save from Seaman there. The header at the back post, and
from Gordon Jury. Oh, that is a ball.
That is an absolute. Here we go. Oh yeah, this was the penalty.
Tony Adams. Yeah, so I remember Tony Adams diving in at the time against Gordon Jury's going nowhere, and everybody's on the.
He goes down. If I always say, if a foreign player's done it, he's done well. He's bought it, hasn't he?
I watched the ball. Does it actually move?
I forgot. Looking back now, so obviously Gary Matt there, and he saved it. I forgot. I thought England scored. I thought the Gazza goal was the first one, and then they scored the second later on. So they were 1-0.
Yeah,
obviously McAllister saved, and then from there they go the other end, don't they?
Yeah, a minute later.
Scores.
A minute later,
So
this is the ball that I'm talking
obviously goes long.
Yeah, so Darren Anderton, sumptuous ball.
Oh, it's Sheringham that. Yeah, Sheringham to Anderton, little one over there. Hendry's coming flying in. See you, Hendry. And then
the famous celebration.
And it was then when everything, it was just like, yes, they're fine.
That's when it took off.
Yeah, you've nailed it. You've nailed it. That Scotland game, that Gazza's goal was the moment it took off, you know, and everything was just
massive
and
one.
that's obviously the game, and well, yeah, it was definitely the moment, and that Gazza moment, you know, he's obviously had a, you know, Gazza's Gazza in it, but he's obviously had issues since then. But that's, you know, you ask him, and it's one of his highlights of his career.
Right, so moving on against Holland, I believe that this game England only needed a draw.
Yeah,
if my memory serves me right.
Yeah, it is. But it was a game of the tournament, and it was, I mean, obviously for England, it was a game of the tournament. It was the game of the tournament altogether, you know, because England beat one of the favourites for the tournament, and they didn't beat them; they absolutely fucking smashed them. You know, it was 4-1, but that was flattening for Holland.
Yeah,
you know, you're talking about the country, about total football and all that, and they were a strong team. They had a lot of Ajax players from there. You know, won the Champions League the year before, I believe.
Exactly. A lot of, I think I remember a quote. I think it was by the manager at the time. He was saying, "We had amazing players, but we weren't a team." I found that a little bit difficult to believe because, like you say, they're predominantly the Ajax team. With a scattering here and there.
But that's an issue that's always been levelled at the Dutch team. They've always had that issue for talent. They've been brilliant, and it's always been that discipline. I mean, how many times over the years, over the major tournaments, has something gone tits up? And they've had, remember Edgar Davids going on, you know, and it's just always been a complete mess. But and it just shows it's not just ability that gets you, ability and technical know-how and all that gets you results and tournaments and major championships and titles. You need more than that. It's that discipline. It's that team camaraderie.
Exactly.
You know, your team camaraderie is always built on how. I firmly believe it's built on how well you get on off the pitch is how well you deal on the pitch when it comes to pressure moments. Do you know what I mean? When you're under the cosh, if you've got that camaraderie with your mates off it, you will go that extra mile on the pitch. And he just felt with Holland, it just wasn't quite there. You know, but, I mean, no doubt they've had some unbelievably talented players over the years, but they've never won it. They are the early country of the world. I mean, it used to be levelled at Spain, but Spain are obviously, you know, they dominated it. Sort of, you know, late.
No, you're bang on. Like, you know, it epitomises in this tournament where you have England, who were notoriously, would you say, bad in major tournaments?
Yeah. I'd go with that.
Where again we go back to the tour of Asia, where you can see the camaraderie. Like, we know what it's like being in like a squad where you get along with everybody, where the camaraderie is immense, and you know you'll do anything for your team. And you can see from the pictures on, like I say, on the front page of the Sun, that team had camaraderie, and you know you had a lot.
Absolutely,
you had a lot of players that would basically throw themselves in front of anything for each other, and like you say, the Hollands of the world, they never seem to learn, and it didn't seem like they didn't here, even though they had the likes of, you know, your Patrick Kluivert, who at the time was probably my favourite striker.
Yeah. They had Seedorf, who obviously went on to be, you know, we're talking about players. For me, he's the most underrated player of the last 30 years. He's won the Champions League with different teams so many times. He's played for Real Madrid, Milan, you know, some top teams, Ajax as well, you know, and he just never got the recognition and the adulation that he deserved.
Absolutely, because he was like an engine of the team when it wasn't popular to be that Makelele. It wasn't popular to be the person that does all the dirty work.
I'd say he was. I mean, he probably was that in that tournament, but I'd say as he goes on, he's become more of an 8. You know what I mean? Playing a bit more advanced, but he was just what you'd call a complete midfielder. He was just so good and composed, and his ability in the ball was just brilliant. And he's one of those players, I think, we're looking back now, you know, you sometimes take players for granted when they're playing, and he was definitely one of those players. So going back to the actual Holland game, this was like a bit of a free shot, because it was you felt both teams were happy for a draw, you know, get through. But England, what happened for the next 90 minutes was just something special.
You know, everybody talks about the 4-1 victory, but like this touch from Paul Ince, like, it's phenomenal.
Yeah,
like it's something that you don't associate with Paul Ince.
I was going to say exactly the same. It's what it is. He's just that all-action, combative midfielder, that you wouldn't really expect. Whereas if Gazza did something like that, you'd be like, yeah, okay.
You'd be raving about it.
That's Danny Blint as well. That's Daley Blint's dad there, Danny Blint.
Never any
Does
doubt.
anyone hit a ball cleaner than Shearer?
Not that I can think of.
I think Matty Stewart was pretty much the only one that I can remember who struck the ball that well and that hard. Well, yeah, you're talking about Shearer. There was the old SAS, wasn't there? We seem to have forgot about Sheringham because Sheringham got involved in this one as well. This is Sheringham's goal, if I remember right. And now it's 2-0 and it's party time. And I remember it was just like 3 lines was bouncing and saying, "This is Gazza."
Sheringham, mate. He's got a third eye. He's got a third eye.
That
definitely.
Touch and that finish as well. I mean, where Shearer hits that from the outside of his foot, from that angle, you don't find that in the coaching book. No. Top corner as well. And then that was the old Sheringham got 2 as well, didn't he? That one, he's followed up 3, and it was the old SAS.
You know what made this moment kind of even sweeter? This was the goal that knocked Scotland out.
You talk. That touch from Bergkamp though is just absolutely fucking gorgeous. And then so that goal knocked Scotland out of the tournament, and England topped the group, and Holland was second, and then it was on to quarter-final stage. Moving on to the England-Spain game, knockout game. I think after the Holland game, the whole nation, team were gathering real momentum, and we felt being part of it, and it just sort of felt like, this is it. I mean, the whole 3-line song would just, it was being sung everywhere, and then the game came, and I don't know if you remember, the game was a bit of an anticlimax, and I think Spain were really unlucky not to go through.
Yeah,
Spain had chances to beat England in that game, and a good chances as well. And
they were dominant. Spain were very dominant in that game, and like it was a few saves from David Seaman, who actually managed to keep England in it. They also had a disallowed goal in the game. I can't remember who scored it, but he was well onside, and it was a goal that should have counted. But yeah, they were. Then
obviously went to penalty shootout, and I think most people remember, the moment we're going to talk about in a bit. But I think it was important after Italian 90 when England lost to Germany on penalties, and they seem to have the bad penalty things. Italy and England have had a very sort of checkered history when it comes to penalties. They've got very similar history as well.
Yeah.
But England had obviously lost the 99, and it was the whole we've got the penalty shootout around. We're going to do this. We're going to do this. And obviously Stuart Pearce had missed in the Italian 90 as well, and watching him cry, that tough, old rugged defender, and then he stepped up. And I remember when he stepped up for that penalty, you just you forget about the team. You don't really care. You know the emotion that the guys felt all those years, and this is his chance
to redeem himself.
Redemption's a big word, but I do think it was redemption. And when he stepped up and he scored, and I think you see the emotion. You've got a clip here for it as well, haven't you?
Yeah. I don't think I've ever wanted a player to score a goal more in my life. Well, obviously there's a long time since then, but up to that moment, you just think of all the stuff that he's gone through in the past. It was our biggest chance of doing anything since 1966, and for him to miss that penalty, and then it's not just like you said. We all think about the the footballer aspect of it. We don't actually think of the human side of it.
Yeah.
Where you think that this person's got to go home. He's got a family. He's going to be every conversation that he's had since Italian 90, where he's going to be thinking, this person is thinking about that penalty miss. And even though the people that he's talking to, the people that he speaks to on a regular basis, they're not going to be thinking about those things, but it's just something psychological that he's probably had to deal with all these years, and to step up for that penalty, it was massive.
And he's one of those players that wears his heart on his sleeve. He loves his country. He absolutely loves his country.
Yeah.
And when he scored that penalty, I'll tell you what. I mean, it wasn't like the deciding penalty. It wasn't like he scored the 6th penalty in England and threw it the next round. It was he just scored. I can't remember. I think it was 3rd or something.
Yeah.
And he stepped up and he's absolutely nailed it in the bottom corner. And when he turned and he's giving me that fist, and you look at the face and the emotion that was there, it was just etched on his face, and you could just see, he just wanted to cry and explode. And I think that whole relief was a huge moment in the tournament for England as well. And I know we talk about the Gazza goal. I think that's a huge moment Pierce scored, and it just felt like it was a massive relief from the whole country. And I felt when Pierce scored that goal, you sort of knew England were going to win the penalty shootout.
You absolutely believe that England were going to do it. And I remember at the time thinking, we're going to actually do this because we've got hammered in this game. We really didn't come out to play.
England should be out, yeah.
Yeah, it was a complete anticlimax compared to the Holland game. You think you're going to kick on, but in reality, the Spaniards should have went through. And Stuart Pearce, like you say, his redemption. David Seaman with a save, and it was actually Rafa Nadal, the tennis player's uncle.
Yeah, it was. Yeah, Miguel Nadal.
Yeah,
Miguel
who
Nadal,
actually
right,
missed the penalty, but yeah, like you say, never wanted to see a single person score a penalty more than that moment. So next we're going to move on to the England versus Germany semi-final, which was quite a devastating moment in my life.
You can't really put that up, you know. Fucking hell.
Yeah, so much promise, so much promise. You believe that this was going to be finally going to be the time that we were going to do it, and finally going to be the time where we, you know, for want of a better word, redemption, like, you know. And I think a lot of us, the fans, we put too much emphasis on the fact that it is actually Germany and it is, you know, the war. When in reality, the players are going out and they're just playing another team, another 11 players, and yeah, it just transpired the usual way. But this was actually.
I mean, I don't know if you remember. I know we mentioned earlier about the tactical makeup and of how certain teams played. England did we mention it earlier, didn't we? We were about 4-4-2. No, England sort of switched between 4-4-2 and 3-5-2. They went for the Scotland game. They went 3-5-2 at half time. But for this game, they changed it to 3-5-2 again. I remember it were Neville, Adams, and Southgate. Southgate were left side of centre half, who obviously ended up missing it. And then the interesting was Germany, because they had Matthias Sammer playing in a sweeper role and Dieter Altz in midfield. Every time he'd advance, Dieter Altz used to drop back in and play. I've not seen a top international team play that since that 96 team. But I mean, it helped. They had Matthias Sammer, and then before that, they had Lothar Matthäus. So they had two of the sort of top sweepers of all time playing. So they had that option, but Matthäus were injured in that tournament, so that's why he never played. But yeah, the game itself, England played well. They should have won. They should have gone through. I mean, you talk about Spain, where you think Spain should have knocked England out. England should have won that game, and they should have won it comfortably. I mean, no, and they get the goal early, and then do you remember the guy? His name was Kuntz, wasn't it?
Yeah, Kuntz. Kuntz was the one that equalised.
I remember it was going. I was like, Germans are just looking at us with two fingers up, aren't they?
Yeah, but that's what I mean. On the second Badil and Skinner, you know, the parody of Three Lions, where they moved it to 98. Do you remember when they all had the shirts on, what said "cunts" on the back of it?
I remember.
No, but yeah, you're right. Like, you hit the nail on the head when you said it was just the reverse of the Spain game. I thought we were the team that were pressing. You know, if you think of the Gazza moment, you know, like they say, I don't know whether they're over exaggerating at the time. If you had on a larger size of boot, for example, he'd have got on the end of that chance that we had. But yeah, it was just one of those games where you just thought it's going to go to penalties. You just knew it was going to go to penalties. And
you know, you mentioned that interesting for the larger size, but I firmly believe, and we've watched lots of games over the years, it's sometimes just meant to be in it. You know, you can't explain it. You can get everything right pre-match, you can get your tactics right, players can play well, but that bit of luck that you need, or it's not even luck, it's just normal luck. You know, it just doesn't happen. Like, you're inches away from getting a little toenail on that, it's a goal.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? Shearer, like so many little moments, and it just didn't happen.
Yeah.
And
but
it was just like, you know, you're watching it, and as you're watching it, I remember I just thought, like, whereas in the Spain game, you're thinking, go to penalties, because Spain were on top. This game, you're thinking, don't go to penalties. You need to win. First in 90 minutes, like, you need to win in extra time. And it just, do you remember when, and another thing, do you remember it was golden goal at that time as well? They put golden goal in this time.
Yeah.
And Germany scored in extra time, but
Yeah.
it was disallowed. I don't know if you remember.
I don't
Germany
remember.
scored in extra time. It would, and everyone's heart, you could just see the crowd just went flat because everyone knew, commentators were banging on about it, golden goal, next goal wins it. They scored, I'm at home, my family just sort of like, my dad just down, like flat as a fucking pancake. And then the referee's blown and he's gone like, I was like, fuck's sake. Carry on. And then obviously it went to penalties. Yeah, this was the moment, and I remember when he did it, it was just like heartbreak.
Absolutely.
Even though it wasn't the moment they were out, it was Andreas Muller, wasn't it, when he turned up? And I remember Andreas Muller's celebration because he smashes it down the middle and he with power.
Yeah.
And what's your celebration? He runs, he puts his arms on his hips and he just looks around, and I'm just thinking, what a cunt.
Another thing that goes unnoticed on that particular penalty shootout is Stuart Pearce actually took another penalty and he just nails it. So it just goes to show that the massive balls that he has.
Just going back on that, we're on about, so Southgate became the new sort of Pearce, didn't he, really? And then, if you remember, it must have been about a month or two later, he was doing adverts for Pizza Hut, wasn't he?
Yeah, absolute devastation. You know, I couldn't quite believe that we actually went out at that point. You know, it took a while to sink in. Usually,
do you know, for me, obviously, from '94 when I got it and Italy got knocked out, and it was a similar feeling to when Italy lost the World Cup in '94, and that empty, hollow feeling, thinking, and it meant more because I don't know, I wouldn't say it meant more. I'd say I felt it more because I was in a country where obviously and it was just banged on. I was on all the news channels and pundits run about it, and when you go to school, you'd have people talk. Do you know? And it just felt like it felt like it meant more. And that devastation of just sort of like, real heartbreak, and it was just horrible. The final itself, Germany against Czech Republic.
Yeah, so the final itself, and
a bit of a non-affair, wasn't it?
I've got no doubt that I watched it. But my recollection of it is not great. I remember Patrick Berger scoring a penalty.
Gave the lead. They gave him the lead. Yeah.
Yeah, so Karol Poborski got brought down. Patrick Berger gave him the lead, and then it was substitute Oliver Bierhoff.
Yeah, he equalised.
Got the equaliser, and then obviously we'll move on to it. But probably the biggest error of the tournament, or any tournament, just a simple shot from Bierhoff, and I can't for the life of me think of the goalkeeper, but it was an absolutely horrendous howler of an error, and that was a golden goal.
Just a quick one on the golden goal for the listeners that want about in the 90s.
Yeah.
Golden goal was a rule created by it was UEFA, and then FIFA took it on as well. So basically, in extra time, the first goal wins. So there was no comeback. It was that's the event. So that's why it brought about, especially in 1960, that many 0-0s, because teams didn't want to make a mistake, and
everybody was just cagey. So there was 6 goals in the full knockout stages. So as soon as it went to extra time, I think there was only 1 goal scored in extra time. The idea of golden goal was for teams to come out and effectively try and take the game.
Then that goes back down to human nature, doesn't it? You don't want to. It's hard to lose.
Yeah.
It's easier to protect than it is to go and get something. Do you know what I mean? And it's that human nature kicks in. Football goes out in mind. And even if we talk about tactics and how it influences, you can plan however you want. But once you're on that pitch, and as a player, walk through the game. I know, with miles to different level to what they play at the World Cup.
Yeah.
But you can get into a game and you start protecting. It comes time. It's the same thing as going 1-0 up. You don't want to lose what you've already worked hard to get. We talk about Pearce's penalty miss and how that affects him, but I think as a keeper there, making like a quiet, straightforward save, and making a quite basic error of just like not catching it, and it's not a normal game. It's a European Championship final. It's a golden goal. There's literally nothing you can do. That's you done. That's your. No matter if you play again, that's going to stick with you for the rest of your life. So that was obviously Germany won it. Shearer ended up top goal scorer. Our mate Stoichkov from 94 was second with 3, and Davor Suker, I think he finished with 3 as well. But Shearer won the Golden Boot. and we had the team of the tournament as well. So if we just get that up, I know we talked about the goalkeeper earlier on, which was the German Andreas Kopke. I know we talked for. He did my head. I mean, I was a kid, but he did me fucking head in the amount of time we were punching the ball. I'll just catch it.
Yeah.
Just catch the fucking thing.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm just going through. I mean, this team of the tournament was so much better than like '94. These are players that are just literally some of the, great players of that generation. So the back four was Laurent Blanc, Marcel Desailly, Matthias Sammer, and Paolo Maldini. I mean, there's not a right.
You can't argue with that, can you?
Yeah, I mean, there's not a right back amongst them, but fuck me, do you know what I mean? Any danger of a bit of balance there, you ain't.
That's what I mean. They don't pick.
He was good for European football.
Yeah, they don't pick fullbacks.
Nice.
Yeah, they don't pick fullbacks. They just pick defence, don't they? Like that as a four, you could argue that they're four of the greatest defenders to ever have lived. So.
Yeah, they're up there. They're up there. I mean, I won't say the greatest, but I completely. They're the top echelon of players.
Mm-hmm.
And then we go through the midfield. They played a 4-3-3 formation. They had Gazza, Poborski, and Dieter Eilts. Obviously, Dieter Eilts played because him and Matthias Sammer have got to play with each other. Sammer goes, Eilts comes back.
Yeah.
But then it's weird. You're playing four at the back without a right back, and you've got Matthias Sammer playing as a sweeper to go into midfield.
It's a very defensive team.
It's just the balance is all over the fucking place. But anyway, that's another. I'm not going to go into that. The front three are pretty good. Shearer, Stoichkov, and Suker.
Phenomenal.
Only problem is they're all very central strikers. You're gonna have to have Stoichkov do a job out wide for us. They're just they're all going to be taking each other's place. But I'm just
We're going to say Suker or Alan Shearer on the wing, yeah.
Exactly, yeah.
But yeah,
it's like going back to thingy, isn't it?
I was looking at the all-time goal scoring charts of the Euros, and I can't believe that Alan Shearer's still up there in the top three. So it goes Michel Platini, Cristiano Ronaldo, and Alan Shearer. Obviously, you'd think that Cristiano was going to go on to eclipse them all, but what I found interesting was Platini's were all scored in the same tournament. I think it was 1984.
Was San Marino in that tournament?
But they scored 9 goals in one tournament. That is ridiculous.
Fucking racking him up against a postman.
Yeah, so what I wanted to go back up on is something that you touched upon earlier. It was with regards to the diversity of the England squad at the time, and pretty much your thoughts on how it's changed over the years since Euro 96 to what it is to today.
I think it's really interesting. We both can obviously speak about grassroots level and how it's affected us, and non-league level, how there's a huge underrepresentation of Black, Asian, minority ethnic players, coaches, managers. If you looked at that England team, there was Paul Ince in that team, Euro 96. I mean, you had Ferdinand on the bench, Les Ferdinand on the bench, you had Rio Ferdinand on the bench, who was just coming through the ranks, But there wasn't many, but there were still good players about, and the National Front was still active at the time as well. Whereas I think Southgate made a really good point. I mean, at the time there was racism existing, and it was a lot more prevalent than it is now. The reason why it's so much more in the public domain now is again about through social media and the internet age. It's easier for people to make people aware of it. And I think Southgate, one of the things I thought he did really well for 2018 was he brought the nation closer. And I say he brought the nation closer, I mean all parts of the country. We're a multicultural country now.
Mm-hmm.
We always have been, but we're now more than ever than we've ever been before. And you go through the current team, you're Sterling, Rashford, Dele Alli, do you know what I mean? And you got Joe Gomez, Trent. There's so many. Most players, are not white. And I think it's important. I think Southgate said it in one of the interviews. We're a representation, fair representation of our society.
Absolutely.
Whereas in Euro 96, that wasn't true.
Could you argue the point that Euro 96 perhaps inspired a lot of the other nationalities, the other minorities in the country, in order to push?
Yeah, you could absolutely. But I think it's important to understand as well. the whole national front thing was quite big. I mean, when the Euro '96 was about, I lived in a quite sort of diverse community in Bradford, and you found there was a severe lack of connection to the English national team, and it wasn't because of England. It was because of the whole sort of national front racist ideology that I was still harping, and it just felt really uncomfortable. So you'd find people not really following England, but finding other teams within the tournament to support and follow. So, for example, Holland or Germany or Spain, just someone else, just another country that they felt they had a connection to, more of a connection than England. And I felt that was really sad. Whereas now, if you fast forward to 2018, you'd struggle to find now, unless you've got sort of, I'd say, countries sort of your fans coming over from sort of like Eastern Europe, and you got your Polish fan, which is fine, you're from that, that's fine. Whereas now, what about sort of your fans from sort of say your West Indian backgrounds or your South Asian backgrounds, they are now they're England supporters. They want England to do well. They'll get involved. They'll feel the pain of England not going through. So I think there's been a huge shift, but it has taken 20 odd years. I mean, there's still racism is prevalent, and it's about, and we've both obviously been part of it and suffered it, even at grassroots level. But throughout the year, I think it's been a huge step up, and the efforts have been made. But now the fact that there are more players of an ethnic background, which has helped England to get to the point where they are and unite the nation. I think people and the country, and you've got to understand, they don't always get the fact that football is so powerful, sport is so powerful. It's got the power to unite countries and nations and cover up those sort of cracks, and not cover up those cracks, like breaking down those barriers. And I think it was massive and hugely influential, the stuff that Southgate's done, and I think he doesn't get enough credit for it. And Raheem Sterling's obviously an ambassador now for stepping up and really making a point of letting people know that it's not right. You know what I mean? We're not just going to be quiet. I mean, now you've got black footballers now that played in the 90s talking about how bad it was back then. So that we've got to take that into consideration as well, to think why they didn't get a chance. It was great, England were doing that. And if you go through sort of the England fans, some of those clips we've been watching over 96, all the fans, you look at all the fans, I don't remember seeing anyone that wasn't white.
Yeah.
Whereas now, you watch the fans, you will see, that there is a fairer representation. When I say fair, it's still not a fair representation. You'll still get, you'll get more Black, Asian, minority, ethnic groups at games now than you would back then. But it's still not. We're still not there. We've still got a lot of work to do. But there's been a huge improvement from then. Well, yeah, I think that's about that wraps it up for this week's episode of Beating the Press. Next week, it's World Cup '98 when a certain Michael Owen burst onto the scene.
Yep, and a certain
you remember right.
David Beckham burst off the scene.
Yeah, exactly. And penalties were England's nemesis again.
Football didn't come home again.
It didn't, no. Until next week, see you guys.
See you guys.
We're not positive enough.
It's coming home, it's coming home, it's coming, football's coming home.
We'll go on getting back.